Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
Curtis stops by Portia's office, having heard she had a scan. Portia says so far everything is on track, but this is considered an age gestation, so she doesn't want to rush into telling people. Curtis warns her that Stella formerly figured out she's pregnant, and she's also not happy about the divorce. Curtis says Stella wants them to stay together and raise their child, but Portia shuts that down, formerly knowing he's run back to Jordan. Curtis says they may not work as hubby and woman, but they've been great parents to Trina and can do the same for their baby. Curtis is about to leave when he notices an ultrasound print on Portia's desk. Gio and Emma confess. Gio and Emma arrive, hoping to see Ned, but an angry Britt heists Emma to talk. Emma sends Gio to go up to see Ned, and Britt also accuses Emma of putting Rocco up to stealing her crucial fob, and now he may go to prison. Emma admits that she allowed Dalton was testing on creatures, and she was wrong. Britt assumes Rocco has been playing her this whole time, just to get that crucial fob for Emma. Emma says she has it wrong, and for reasons she doesn't understand. Rocco likes Britt and wants to believe she's a good person. Emma insists she's sorry about what happened to Rocco. Britt tells her that, as someone who has made her share of miscalculations, and reason doesn't fix everything, and some miscalculations you have to live with. Gio way off the elevator to find Dante filling Brooklyn in on what happened to Rocco. Gio approaches them and admits he's the reason Rocco broke into the lab. He explains he joined Emma's group against beast atrocity, and they were induced. Dalton was testing on creatures. They signed Danny, Rocco, and Charlotte to help them. Gio tells them the kiddies were no way supposed to go into the lab, they were just supposed to produce a diversion so he and Emma could break in. Still, everything was called off after Ned's heart attack, but the kiddies went ahead and broke in on their own. Dante says his family has been arrested, shackled, and is sitting in a cell, when it should be Gio in there. Brooklyn way in to calm effects down, as Gio insists he didn't ask Rocco to break into the lab. Dante says he didn't need to ask him, all Rocco cares about is being part of his family. Indeed, if Gio doesn't want to be a part of Rocco's, ouch, that had to hurt Gio. Who thinks this might bring Gio and Brooklyn closer, however? Trina ponders her mama's guilt. At Ava's gallery, Kai meets up with Trina, who has decided to tell her parents they were at Drew the night he was shot. She believes that if she tells them the blackmail material is gone, the strain on their marriage will go down. Kai says it's possible that the stress her parents are under has nothing to do with the blackmail. He says Drew hasn't made any demands of her parents recently, and they both know her mama doesn't have a justification for her whereabouts when Drew was shot. A commotion at the Pates. At the Pates, Liz runs into Laura, who says effects went horribly wrong at Rocco's censure. Nathan arrives and says he made sure Rocco got his own room at Juvie, so he should be insulated from the general population. Laura smothers that this is all Dalton's doing, as when the police questioned him, he no way mentioned that his lab had been vandalized. Laura goes to bounce, and also Dalton shows up and incitements Laura about her grandson going to jail and her implicit loss in the election, leaving her helpless to help Rocco. Laura accuses Dalton of lying about his lab being trashed. She wouldn't allow her grandson to be unfairly targeted. As citizens begin rephotographing on their phones, Dalton claims to the substantiations that Laura is using her mayoral power to help Rocco, which is nepotism. She tells him she wouldn't let him railroad a child, and Dalton retaliates that sounds like a trouble, and a abuse of her power. She yells that any use of her power as mayor will be warranted. Lulu runs an idea by Carly. Lulu finds Carly at Bobby's and tells her what happened in court. Carly warns her captivity will change her son, so do whatever it takes to save Rocco. Lulu can falsify Dalton's allegation if a substantiation comes forward, and she has two Danny and Charlotte. Still, she wouldn't let them come forward until she knows they're protected. Sonny has words with Justine. In court, Rick tells Sonny that he and Turner had a deal, leading Sonny to ask Justine why she broke her agreement with Rick and ambuscaded a child. She explains Dalton gave her fresh substantiation she couldn't ignore, and the state wouldn't oppose bail. Rick doesn't trust Justine and says this is over. He storms out, and Sonny tells Justine that Dalton has set up his grandson and she's falling for it. Justine tells Sunny that she's only doing her job, and maybe his grandson is shamefaced. Sunny says his grandson isn't a fabricator, everyone who knows him knows that, and the Bobbies no way dealt the lab. Sunny says Dalton would know what to break to frame Rocco without damaging his own exploration, and the Joe is hiding commodity. Rick has an offer for Alexis. Felicia is in Alexis' office, and they bandy how Portia could have attained access to Edward's gun, given that she visited and treated Monica every week. Still, they've no idea what her motive for shooting Drew might be. Felicia says she'll continue to look into what Portia is hiding. Rick interrupts to speak with Alexis about Rocco, so Felicia heads out. Rick explains he took Rocco's case as he and Sunny are making peace for their daughter's sake, and maybe they should do the same. Alexis asks why he's then, and he says he needs Charlotte and Danny to come forward because they were in the lab with Rocco and can fight Dalton's claims of vandalization. Alexis refuses to risk Danny's freedom, so Rick is prepared to make her an offer to candy the deal. In the show's final moments. In her office, Portia shows Curtis the ultrasound, but says it's too early to tell if it's a boy or a girl. Curtis asks to keep it, and she says he can. He takes off with the print, and Portia tries to keep it together. In the hall, Curtis has gashes in his eyes. At the gallery, Trina realizes that if Kai is right, and her mama shot Drew, and her pater knows, that could surely be what destroyed their marriage. Kai says this is just a proposition, but if Trina tells them she was at Drew's, they might tell her the verity. Can she handle that? In Alexis' office, Rick tells Alexis another suspect to look at in Drew's firing Portia Robinson. Alexis asks why the croaker would shoot Drew. Rick says he can give her several reasons. Outside of court, Sunny tells Justine that occasionally the system fails, and she acknowledges that occasionally, innocent people are condemned while shamefaced people go free. Sunny hopes she makes sure the justice system doesn't fail his grandson. At Bobby's, Lulu cries to Carly that there's no guarantee Danny and Charlotte won't go down with Rocco, and this feels like what happened to Michael and the Claudia Zachary drama each over again. They all allowed Michael wouldn't go to captivity and were wrong. At the sanitarium, Emma stumbles upon Dante laying into Gio for getting Rocco involved in this Dalton business. Emma insists this is her fault, not Joe's. Dante also assumes Gio squinched over his family for a girl, and tells Gio to walk down before he says Commodity Hill remorse. Too late? Gio walks off with his head hanging low. Emma follows him, and Brooke Lynn gives Dante a look. At the Pates, Laura admits that Rocco broke into Dalton's lab, but claims that any vandalization was done by Dalton himself. She vows to fight him, her family will fight him, and so will the Quartermaines. Dalton rolls his eyes and keeps looking off. Laura slaps him, tells him to look at her, and promises him this would end well for him, who thinks Laura just made herself the high suspect. Should Commodity be to Dalton? In the heart of Port Charles, where personal dramas are often as potent and life-altering as any criminal conspiracy, the citizens find themselves navigating a profound baptism by fire. This is not a cleansing by water, but a trial scorched by the flames of public scandal, private guilt, and the desperate, sometimes reckless, love for family. The lines between protector and perpetrator, truth and deception, are blurring, forcing everyone to confront the consequences of their actions and the shadows of their pasts. As encouraging words are whispered in moments of solidarity, they are swiftly drowned out by the echo of angry threats, setting the stage for a series of confrontations that will redefine relationships and reshape the city's power structure. A secret revealed, Portia, Curtis, and the weight of a new beginning. The tension is palpable within the sterile, quiet confines of Portia Robinson's office at General Hospital. When Curtis Ashford stops by, his visit is framed as casual concern, but the air is thick with the unspoken history of their fractured marriage. He's heard about her checkup, and his presence is a testament to the enduring, complicated tether between them, the impending child they created together. Portia, ever the pragmatist and physician, confirms that her pregnancy is progressing on track. However, she cloaks her news in clinical caution, labeling it an older pregnancy as a justification for her reluctance to share the news publicly. It's a shield, one she desperately clings to in a life that is rapidly spinning out of her control. Curtis, however, brings the outside world crashing in. He is the bearer of an inconvenient truth. Stella, his formidable mother, has already pieced together the puzzle. And her deduction comes with a side of clear disapproval, not just of the pregnancy, but of the divorce that precipitated this new, complicated reality. Curtis reveals Stella's old-fashioned desire for them to reunite, to fashion a traditional family unit for their unborn child. Portia's reaction is immediate and sharp, a definitive shutdown. She sees through the suggestion and, with a painful clarity, acknowledges the elephant in the room. Curtis has already run back to Jordan. Her words are not just a statement of fact but a lament, laced with the bitterness of a wound that has not yet begun to heal. In this moment of high emotion, Curtis attempts to bridge the gap with logic and a reflection on their shared history. He argues that while their romantic partnership failed, their partnership as parents to Trina has been a resounding success. He pleads for a future where they can replicate that co-parenting dynamic for their new baby, a plea for a peaceful, if separate, alliance built on mutual respect and love for their child. It's a noble, encouraging sentiment, a flicker of hope in a conversation mired in regret. But as he turns to leave, his eye catches a glimpse of the future itself, an ultrasound photo resting on Portia's desk. This grainy, black and white image is more powerful than any argument. It transforms the abstract concept of a pregnancy into a tangible reality. When Curtis, with tears shimmering in his eyes, asks to keep it, and Portia quietly acquiesces, it's the first truly tender, unguarded moment they've shared in months. He leaves, clutching the photo like a lifeline, while Portia remains behind, her professional composure crumbling as she grapples with the overwhelming confluence of joy, fear, and profound sorrow. Confessions of the Young, a web of good intentions with catastrophic consequences. Elsewhere in the hospital, a storm of a different kind is brewing, centered on the reckless courage of youth. Gio and Emma arrive with the innocent goal of visiting Ned Quartermain, but they are swiftly intercepted by a force of nature, a furious Britt Westbourne. In a move that is all protective fury, Britt separates Emma from Gio, her accusations flying fast and sharp. She directly blames Emma for manipulating Rocco, for using him as a pawn to steal her key fob, and in doing so, potentially condemning him to a future behind bars. Emma, faced with Britt's wrath, doesn't deny her role. She confesses with a raw honesty, admitting her group was convinced Dalton was conducting illegal animal testing, a cause she believed in passionately. She was wrong, and she owns that mistake. But she fiercely refutes Britt's cynical assumption that Rocco was merely playing her. With an insight that surprises even herself, Emma insists that Rocco, for reasons she doesn't fully comprehend, genuinely likes Britt and wants to believe in her inherent goodness. He saw a humanity in Britt that others often overlook. Britt, a woman whose own life is a ledger of past transgressions, delivers a crushing, world-weary response. An apology, she states coldly, doesn't fix everything. Some mistakes, she warns, are permanent scars you are forced to live with forever. It's a harsh lesson for the idealistic Emma, a baptism into the brutal reality that good intentions can have devastating, irreversible outcomes. Meanwhile, Gio, having escaped the immediate line of fire, walks into another confrontation. He finds Dante Falconeri, Rocco's father, recounting the day's traumatic events to a concerned Brooklyn Quartermain. Fueled by a guilty conscience, Gio steps forward and delivers his own confession, shouldering the blame. He reveals the full scope of the plan. His and Emma's animal cruelty group recruited Danny, Rocco, and Charlotte. The scheme was for the younger kids to create a diversion, allowing Gio and Emma, the older and presumably more capable pair, to execute the actual break-in. The entire operation was supposed to be aborted after Ned's heart attack, a crisis that should have put everything into perspective. But the kids, driven by a misguided sense of purpose and adventure, proceeded on their own. Dante's anger, already a simmering pot, boils over. The image of his younger brother handcuffed and sitting in a jail cell, while Gio walks free, is an injustice he cannot stomach. He venomously states that it should be Gio in that cell. It is Brooklyn who acts as the voice of reason, physically and verbally intervening to prevent the situation from escalating further. But Dante delivers the most piercing blow of all, cutting straight to the heart of Joe's deepest insecurity. He coldly informs Gio that he didn't need to explicitly ask Rocco for help. Rocco, desperate for a connection and yearning to be part of the family Gio represents, would have done anything to earn his approval. It's a devastating accusation that paints Gio not as a malicious mastermind, but as an oblivious and ungrateful brother, a role that cuts far deeper. The fallout from this confession promises to ripple outward, potentially driving a guilt-ridden Gio closer to the compassionate Brooklyn, who alone seems to see the tormented young man beneath the rebellious exterior. A gallery of doubt, Trina's world shatters by a single theory across town. In the refined tranquility of Ava's art gallery, Trina Robinson is wrestling with her own familial crisis. She confides in Kai, revealing her plan to come clean to her parents about their presence at Drew's house on the night of the shooting. In her mind, this is the key to alleviating the immense strain destroying her parents' marriage. If she reveals the blackmail material is gone, she reasons, the source of their conflict will vanish, and they can begin to heal. Kai, however, serves as a reluctant voice of cold, hard logic. He gently posits that the stress between Curtis and Portia may have an origin point far more sinister than a resolved blackmail scheme. He forces Trina to consider a terrifying timeline. Drew has made no recent demands, and they both know her mother has no verifiable alibi for the time of the shooting. The implication hangs in the air, ugly and unavoidable. As this theory takes root, Trina's entire understanding of her family begins to fracture. The realization dawns on her, if her mother shot Drew, and her father knows, the foundation of their marriage wouldn't just be strained, it would be utterly obliterated by a secret of that magnitude. Kai's final question is a brutal one. If she pushes for the truth, is she truly prepared to handle what that truth might be? It's a question that leaves Trina paralyzed, standing on the precipice of a revelation that could shatter her world forever. The political arena explodes. Laura's maternal fury clashes with Dalton's smug villainy. The private turmoil of Port Charles's citizens is mirrored in the very public sphere of the city's mayoral election. At the polls, a weary Laura Collins crosses paths with Elizabeth Weber, and her maternal anguish is on full display as she recounts the horrible events at Rocco's arraignment. A brief moment of relief comes from Nathan, who assures her he's used his influence to secure Rocco protective custody in juvie, a small mercy in a sea of injustice. Laura's focus, however, remains fixed on the true villain of the piece, Henry Dalton. She fumes over the fact that Dalton never reported the lab break-in to the police initially, a critical detail that exposes his subsequent evidence as a calculated, after-the-fact fabrication. Her rage finds its target when Dalton himself has the audacity to appear at the polls, goading her with smug satisfaction. He taunts her about Rocco's incarceration and her impending political downfall, painting a picture of her as a powerless figure. This is the spark that ignites the powder keg. Laura, with the eyes and phone cameras of the public upon her, unleashes a torrent of accusation. She declares that her grandson will not be his scapegoat. Dalton, a master manipulator, immediately seizes the public relations advantage. He feigns victimhood, claiming Laura is leveraging her mayoral power for familial gain, nepotism of the highest order. When Laura retorts that she won't let him railroad a child, he expertly twists her words, framing it as a threat and a misuse of power. The confrontation reaches its zenith when Laura, her composure completely shattered by his smirking arrogance, slaps him across the face, a moment of pure, unvarnished maternal instinct that will undoubtedly be captured on video from a dozen different angles. In that single, explosive act, Laura may have just handed Sidwell and Ezra Boyle the final weapon they need to destroy her. She concludes with a promise that lands not as a political statement, but as a chilling prophecy: this will not end well for you. In the high-stakes game Sidwell is playing, Laura has just made herself the prime suspect should Henry Dalton suddenly meet a tragic end. Desperate alliances and sinister offers, the adults scramble for solutions. As the younger generation reels from their confessions, the adults in their lives are engaging in their own intricate dances of strategy and desperation. Lulu and Carly. A haunting parallel, Lulu seeks solace and counsel from Carly at Bobby's. Carly, speaking from the deep, permanent scars of her own son Michael's wrongful imprisonment, offers grim but vital advice. She warns Lulu that prison changes a person fundamentally, and she must do whatever it takes to save Rocco. Lulu reveals her fragile hope. Danny and Charlotte are the key witnesses who can disprove Dalton's claims of vandalism. But her maternal protectiveness extends to them as well. She refuses to let them come forward until she can guarantee their immunity. This dilemma evokes painful ghosts of the past, with Lulu drawing the direct, terrifying parallel to the Claudia Zachara drama, a time when everyone believed Michael was safe, and they were tragically wrong. Sonny and the law, a clash of worlds. Sonny Corinthos, operating from his own unique moral code, confronts Assistant District Attorney Justine Turner. He questions why she reneged on her deal with Rick Lansing and ambushed a child in court. Justine hides behind the shield of her profession, stating she was merely following the new evidence. Sonny, a man who has built his empire on discerning truth from lies, sees the situation with perfect clarity. He knows his grandson is not a liar, and he points out the glaring hole in the prosecution's case: the police never conducted their own investigation of the lab. He correctly deduces that Dalton, an expert in his own domain, would know precisely what to damage to frame a boy without harming his precious research. It's a compelling argument that pits Sonny's street-honed intuition against the cold, often flawed, machinery of the justice system. Rick and Alexis, an unholy alliance. The plot thickens in Alexis Davis's office, where the investigation into Drew's shooting takes a dramatic turn. Rick Lansing, ever the opportunist, interrupts a meeting between Alexis and Felicia Scorpio. Having taken Rocco's case as a peace offering to Sonny, he now extends a similar olive branch to Alexis. His offer is simple: he needs Charlotte and Danny to testify, and in return, he is prepared to sweeten the deal. But his most explosive contribution comes in the form of a new suspect. After Alexis refuses to risk Danny's freedom, Rick calmly suggests she turn her investigative gaze toward Dr. Portia Robinson, promising he can provide several reasons why the doctor would want Drew Kane dead. This single suggestion throws the entire shooting investigation into a new, terrifying light, directly implicating Trina's mother and validating Kai's devastating theory. As the day draws to a close, Port Charles is a city holding its breath. Curtis Ashford walks the hospital halls, tears in his eyes, clinging to the ultrasound image of his unborn child. Trina Robinson stands in an art gallery, her worldview shattered by the horrifying possibility of her mother's guilt. And Laura Collins, having publicly threatened a man who was marked for death, has just positioned herself at the center of a coming storm. The baptism by fire has begun, and the citizens of Port Charles must now navigate the scorching aftermath.